Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Welcome. I know that you are all expecting to see Chirag and you're getting to see me. So can everybody hear me? Can you all hear me? Awesome. Thank you so much for commenting in the chat. Thank you for being here. For those of you who are surprised, my name is Gretchen Coley. I am a founding agent and the team leader of the Coley Group here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I am really, really excited to be here with you today. I get the pleasure of filling in for Chirag and taking today's session over. And really, it's a continuation from yesterday, and it's called Take Action Tuesday. So I hope that you have all of your questions ready. We're going to dive in with some seriously practical advice. Can you hang on one second? Hey, I'm back. Sorry. Okay. So we are going to do some practical advice on a few different things. And so I want to start off by welcoming everyone and saying, hopefully you got those questions written down. I know that Chirag shared on social media an article from the Wall Street Journal this morning that described the National Association of Realtors as the cartel, which is kind of interesting considering that we're part of that association. And I just didn't realize the president of NAR was being likened to Pablo Escobar. So it's kind of crazy. But if you look at this, and it's not like the outside world has a favorable view on NAR as a whole anyway, or on real estate agents. And we all know that. We live it every day. And obviously there are a lot of lawsuits that are flying around, and the world feels like we need to be allowed for lesser commissions, that if we allow someone who we work with to take a lesser commission or to work for a lesser commission, if we cut it once, we have to cut it every time. And they're also saying in that article that a buyer's agent's typical commission is 3%, which I think we would all agree that that's not correct, right? Raise your hand if you think that a buyer agent commission is not an average of 3%. I mean, my hand is completely up. I see a lot of hands up. Thank you for participating today. So, we all know that what we're reading and what we're looking at is really not an accurate representation of what we are, who we do, but it tells us that we may or may not be having the right conversations. Would you agree with that? If people don't understand what we do, it's because we're not articulating that in a way that helps them understand our value. And if you weren't here yesterday, Chirag said a couple things that I think it's really important for you to listen to very carefully. If you've ever listened to anything that he said, this is one. And one of his passionate things, and one of my passionate things with my team, is to stop taking out clients and wasting your time on people who do not need to buy homes. It's not productive. It's not ideal. And these people, the idea of taking these people out and thinking and hoping and praying that they're ever going to turn into money will be the bane of your existence. It will haunt you for the rest of your life, and it will cause you to never build a business like you could build. So there's something that we call in Chirag Coaching and on our team, we call it selective. We call it being selective. And being selective for us with the type of clients that we have is a time management tool. It's the most important thing that you're ever going to do. And going into next year, we're in a contracting market right now. Getting selective can be a very scary thing, but selectively choosing who you work with is going to determine whether your business grows or not. So when you start hearing words from people, like, for example, if I find the right home, or when the right deal comes, or, I really don't need to buy or sell. you got to really like check yourself and know that your time is really valuable, right? Most of you probably have kids. You probably have a significant other who it actually like enjoys you. Raise your hand if you've got other stuff going on that you could be doing. Well, your time is valuable, and you can understand when someone's not in a rush. But what the question I want to pose to you before we get into everyone else's questions is, you know, what specifically is the fear around being selective in your approach? What is the fear about not working with a client who you may feel is not going to buy or is telling you they're not ready? What are the concerns around that? And you can put it in the chat. I'd love to hear what you're saying, because this is kind of where it takes somebody standing up and being the first one to answer the question. So I'm looking in the chat. Because business is slow right now. And so you feel like maybe you should take on everything because it's a little slower right now. How many other people feel that way? Thank you, Carolyn, for being so honest. Who else has got a reason? You can share this with me. I run a team of 20 agents, and I promise you I have heard it all. I like to put people above transactions and create relationships. I totally get it. You know, I am the same way. I preach that through my team. And I feel like we never know is another one. You never know if they're who they're going to refer to us. They can influence other people to buy or sell. And you're right on all of those things. All of those things are real reasons why people choose to work with someone, even when they think they're not ready to buy right now. The problem becomes how we articulate our value to them and the value of our time. And because if we don't do that really well on the front end, we're never going to get a referral. They're never going to refer us. They're never going to buy. And they really don't care about a relationship. Would you all agree with that? They got plenty of friends. People already have plenty of friends. They do not want to have a friendship with their agent 99.9% of the time. And if they do, they're probably stalkers. So really making sure that we're equating what our value proposition is and the value of our time is the best time management tool that you will ever have. So if there's anyone who wants to open it up and let's have a little bit more in depth of a conversation about this, I'd love to kind of brainstorm out with you and answer some questions that you have about, you know, some of the comments that have been made and what your ability is to be able to say no when you think someone is living in la la land and how you figure that out. So who wants to unmute and go first? I work with a lot of people who are in la la land, and I have over 23 years, and my agents work with a lot. Unmute's not, remains enabled. You can't unmute them or let people unmute. Okay, so if you can unmute yourself, you can actually unmute yourself is what I'm being told. So if you want to talk through this and give us a story about a client that you've worked with who you felt like was in la la land when you started working with them looking to buy a home. This is going to be a long session. We got to have some interaction. I know there's some brave soul out there who wants to go.
I guess I'll go.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Thank you for being so brave.
My situation really isn't that she's in La La Land. It's just been well, maybe some of it is, but the problem is that she's on the lower price point of where she wants to live. So we've been kind of looking at other areas. She's finally opened up to looking at other locations that might fit. I found something about a week or so ago that I thought was a good fit. It had been on the market a little while. I figured there'd be some room for negotiation or whatever for her. She's kind of got a difficult financing type. And so it's really hard to get sellers to accept this particular financing.
Sure.
So, um, we get to the property. She likes it, decides she wants to write an offer. We write the offer, it gets accepted. And then she brings her brother to the home inspection. And that's where stuff went downhill. So the house is in good shape, but he had a bunch of complaints. And then I got a call after the home inspection that she decided she doesn't want this house now. Um, and I think it's a mistake. I don't even really think it's her that's wanting, but now she wants to look at other places. And realistically, like, this was it. This was her. I think she's making a mistake. And so now she wants to go back out looking again. And it's kind of tough to say, like, we had a hard enough time trying to find this place, and you let your siblings kind of affect your decision now.
So
And
I'm sure
so,
you've had that conversation with her at this point.
yeah, I mean, I've tried, but I don't think it's completely sunk in at this point. So, this is just within the last couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be really tough for her to find something where she is.
I hear you. And I'm sure a lot of people on this call deal with the same thing. We're dealing with it in our market as well. Where are you, Carolyn?
I'm in Delaware.
Yeah, so we're in Raleigh, and the lower price points are a lot more challenging, and the loan programs have gotten a lot more aggressive, and not everybody understands them or wants to deal with them. We have one called NACA that is a big one that a lot of people just don't want to deal with because there's a lot of uncertainty in it. And I'm sorry that happened. That's unfortunate. That is definitely someone who wants to buy. And I think it's important when you start to understand your client's decision-making process, what that looks like. And it sounds like you got her to a point where she could make a decision, but then she needed validation for that decision. And so she brought in a family member, and that family member, who knows why, has kind of dropped a bomb on that. So, I feel like getting down to the nitty gritty with her and having a conversation that says, you've got to let me know specifically why you're looking to buy a house right now. We've looked at X number of houses, and I would go through the process of, here's where we've been, here's where we got to, this one didn't work out. And with being completely unattached to the result of whether or not it's going to work out, which we always have to be. And Chirag talks about that a lot. How can I best help you moving forward? Or what specifically can I do to help you with the next house? And see what she says, because it could be complete fear. If there could be a lot of things going on that you might not know about. There could be I don't know what the problems with, and I don't want to go too deep into like what in the inspection was an issue, but it sounds like it could come down to the finances of, if I buy something like this, am I going to be able to make those repairs? And
Well,
sometimes those thoughts go through people's minds.
right. There were literally three things on the home inspection, one
Mm-hmm.
of which we knew about, that was already addressed and in the contract that the sellers were willing to repair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we didn't even get to the point of asking the sellers anything. I just think the brother was
Mm-hmm.
just smarter than the average bear, right? Trying to be.
It could have been. I do think it's relevant for you to have another conversation with her and get into reality about, what really was it in that instance that helped. And then you have to use your gut instincts to figure out if you can help her going forward, because the last thing you want to do is have this same thing happen 2 more times. And if it truly is a concern of what the upkeep, maintenance, and issues that come after you buy a home are going to be, which it may very well be, this is a hard market to be looking in, and maybe it's not the time for her right now. And typically what I do is I set that up to say, listen, I'm on your side. I want to help you make whatever decision that's going to benefit you the most. And that decision may be to make no decision. And, getting into that reality is a really important piece, to making sure you don't spend another month or 2 months with someone who's may not be able to buy, because the market, I would imagine, is continuing to move where you are too.
Yes.
So does anybody else have anything else you want to add on that? I'm going to flip this over and talk about a segue into enhancing client experiences by embracing reality in real estate transactions. And I think that's really an important thing because everybody is a little bit out of reality right now. Would you agree with that? That buyers feel like they're in a better market than they're in, and sellers feel like they're in a better market than they're in. Who agrees with that? Everybody's like waving now. Yes, they do. Sellers are completely unrealistic and buyers are completely unrealistic. There's somewhere in the middle that the truth lies. And good communication and a good customer experience is really what's going to set your business apart when it comes to referrals, when it comes to making sure that you're working with the right person. And in order to do that, the only way to enhance a customer experience is really by education and understanding of what that experience is going to be. So how many of you have a buyer process that you go through with all of your clients when they come into your ecosystem? You sit them down, you talk to them about, what they're looking for, and then you take them through a guided process of educating them on what it's like to buy a home in the market that we're in right now. How many of you have one of those? Are there any people who don't have one right now that you're using? I'm trying to figure out how to get speaker view on. So we've got one that says they don't. I think a lot of people don't have a buyer process. And I want to share a story with you that I hope helps you. This is a gift if you don't have this already. Having a buyer process is the most important piece of your business ever, because buyer business is a little bit easier to do, but buyers need to feel the same kind of process that you would give to your listings. And you would never go into a listing appointment without a listing pitch, would you? You would never go into a listing appointment without comps and being prepared, would you? So most people handle buyers a little bit differently. At least that is what I've found in my time being a team leader. Most of the people who join our team join because they have no process. And we have a process that we take buyers through that really gets them into reality, and it gets them into it fast. And I want to tell you just a little bit about this, because I agree with Brad. Both buyers and sellers feel like they should have bought or sold a year ago. Brad, thank you for that. That's exactly what the market feels like. They have serious FOMO. But we know we have different information, right? And the value that we have to a buyer and a seller right now is priceless. It's not finding the house. It is the expertise that we bring to the table and the conversations that we have. You need to write that down. Expertise and conversations. Those are what we are good at. And being able to communicate what they cannot find online is so valuable to you. That is what is going to take you from the average Joe to the next step. And I want to walk through my buyer process, and then I'm happy to dive into it a little bit more. But I want to show you, when a buyer comes into our ecosystem, it doesn't matter if it's a cold lead or if it's my best friend. I've learned that they all have to go through the same process. So we bring them in and we have a meeting with them, and we go through what their needs are, where they want to be, what their financing is. We med-see them, just like Chirag talks about. We find out what's important to them, why they need that. And then we give them a pitch, and we basically say, here's what it's like. Here's how we can ensure your success in today's market as a buyer. And we go through what's going on in our market, real time, what we're seeing, boots on the ground. We go through what it's going to cost them to buy. And we then take them one step further, which is the key. We go into Compass, and we put their exact criteria in live, real time, while they're watching us on Compass. We project it on a big screen in our office. We put their criteria in, and we say, okay, in the last 90 days, there have been no houses that have transacted at your criteria. there's only 4 things that you can change when it comes to changing criteria for a person. And it's very simple. It's area, location, right? Area. It's the type of home, whether it's a condo, single family, townhouse. It is the features within the home, the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, do they need an office, and its price. Would you agree that those are the only 4 things that you can change? So we call this the reality check. This is how we get our clients into reality before we ever put them in our car. We say, nothing has sold. Let's go back 6 months. Nothing has sold. Nothing has transacted in this realm. What can we tweak of these 4 things? And we actually have a circle graph. Can we go a little bit further out? Can we change the neighborhood? Can we change the type of house? Can we change the bedroom count? Do you really need 5 bedrooms or will 4 do? Do you need 3? Do you need a den? What are you using them for? And we don't stop until we have found 3 houses that have closed in the last 90 days that would fit that person's ideal. One of which we want them to say that they buy. And that has been a huge strategy for us because we know immediately if they're a real buyer or not. If they're not a real buyer, they're not willing to adjust their parameters and they're solely focused on what's important to them in that moment. Does that sound like something that you guys do? If you don't have a buyer pitch, Chirag is he's taken our buyer pitch and he's creating a buyer end-to-end system right now. I know Compass has a great one, but having something that you can guide your clients through will help you get them into reality. And looking at closed houses is another thing that helps you manage the client experience because you're educating them, you're letting them know where they are. And it helps you do this over a period of days, not months and weeks of driving people around for something that's not right. And then it also helps you by getting all of that information out first. So when you're in the houses, you're able to deductive reasoning and quantify what's really important to them and what's not. And the big deal is you're able to create a repeatable, predictable, and quantifiable experience. And those things are everything when it comes to working with a buyer. Okay, so next thing I want to touch on, and I think that's probably going to be the last thing we're going to get to talk about. If nobody else has any questions, wait, so hang on. I got a question in here before I move on. Okay, Cynthia says, what if they are out-of-town buyers? That's a great question, Cynthia. Thank you so much. I should have touched on that. We do it via Zoom. The out-of-town buyer is the one that we love so much because we are really trying to help them narrow down neighborhood. So we do this over a Zoom call. We let them know it takes about 45 minutes to an hour. And then we start with area and we talk a little bit about area. Then we start with neighborhood. Sometimes we can't get them down to a complete reality check because we don't have any idea where exactly they want to live. So that first call is really figuring out what we're going to be examining and positioning them with houses that fit their style and price point in those areas. Once we do that, we can usually figure out then what areas are going to be the best fits for exactly what they're looking for. And our next meeting would be to dial that down and reality check them before we put them in the car with us when they come into town. Does that answer that? Okay. I got a question. Why sold properties and not active? Sarah, that's a great question. Here's the reason why. And it's really simple because data, facts don't lie. People do. And sold data is a fact. And we want to look at houses that actually sold, not houses that were on the market. Not any of that. We want to see what sold that they would buy because that means that we can get that criteria again and that they could buy a house at the price point with the features that they want in that area. Most buyers who come into us want 15 different things and they want it for $500,000 and it's never going to happen. And we have to get them out of that really quick without it being us telling them. We want the data to tell them. not us, because we are acting as advisors. We want them to have all their dreams. But if their dream is not a reality, the data needs to tell them that, not us. Does that help? Okay, great. Active properties are not in reality all the time because they haven't transacted. And so we go the next step and we go to active properties. And sometimes we're lucky and there has been a house that has sold. The problem that we find is that houses sell for more than they're listed for or less than they listed for. And we like to see that number so that we can gain reality from that. And we do a lot of off markets as well. So off markets never hit the MLS, but we need to make sure we're in reality with what has closed in the last 90 days before we go to the next step. So Brad says, love how the quantifiable aspect of this, how it comes into play with the reality check. I mean, it's been a golden thing for us and really important for us as a team. Okay, last thing I want to talk about, navigating housing challenges through effective client management. So in real estate, we're always dealing with challenges of finding suitable homes for buyers, and moreover, dealing with difficult clients who are not grounded in the reality of what you can control and what you cannot control. And as part of the transaction. So this is something where, consider that none of the available homes that are on the market meet your client's goals and expectations. How many people have ever heard that? You sent me 15 listings and I hate all of them. None of them work for what I'm looking for. This is a piece of why active doesn't always tell the whole story, because you may not have flushed out really what it is that they're really looking for at that point. So the strategies to best support that buyer change in the future with their ongoing expectations. And how many of you have ever worked with someone who told you they wanted one thing and they bought something completely different? It's like every day of my life, right? So understanding your buyer's ultimate goals, whether they want a larger home, a smaller home, is really a big part of the strategy in the home buying process, and understanding where they want to be and how that's going to help them in the market. So I want to take one question because we're almost out of time. Is there anything that you have in navigating housing challenges, just like Carolyn talked about in the beginning, that you want to bring up that I might be able to brainstorm out for you? Okay, I got one question. If you set up collections for a buyer, I leave the pending and sold so they can see the reality in the area they're looking. So when I'm in the buyer meeting with them, Denise, I set up a sold only. That's what we look at then. And then I shift that collection from sold to active and coming soon. And we use the same data points, but I'm using them interactively to get me to the collection that's going to best fit their needs. I'm not doing it by myself. So it's an interactive process. And then I just change looking for sold properties to looking for active and coming soon. And I do sometimes put pending. It just depends. I find that pending is not a relevant thing for us in our market right now. All right. Anybody have any challenges you want to talk through?
Hey, Gretchen, it's Brad Coy in San Francisco.
Hey, Brad.
This is great. Thank you so much for this buyer process of yours. I'm sure we'll learn more, but I'm really curious, just real quick, do you use collections with your buyers through this process, and are you constantly communicating with them? Okay.
Yes, we do. We have converted over. I was one of the last converts, though. Until I started working with Chirag, we continued to use MLS.
Okay.
We have converted. So we do our solds. We pull up Compass and we use the search to figure out what the sold houses are. And we go through those. And once we've done that, I go back into that same search and I take sold off and I put active and pending, or active and coming soon on. And then I've already got all the criteria dialed in, because real time, we're going from 5 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms. We're going from this area to having a little bit bigger of a circle in a neighborhood right next door that can get them some of the same features. We might even be going from a neighborhood on one side of town to a neighborhood on the other side of town. And then I save that search and throw it into collections. So
I like it. I like
it just, you know what,
That's
I
really
like to,
good.
I like to work, I like to do multiple things at one time, Brad. So I like to have the conversation and set the collection up, because 9 times out of 10, I'm going from one conversation to the next, and I don't have time to set all of that up in between. So my clients end up waiting for me. And I feel like that has been a game changer for our business, and our clients get the immediate gratification.
And as those refinements and needs are changing, are you putting those in your notes in your CRM as well? Okay.
Absolutely. And we're updating their collection as well. And we're using collection for our sellers too, in the exact same way.
Beautiful. Thanks so much.
Of
Appreciate
course.
it.
Thank you all. I got one more question and then I'm going to have to pop off. What do you do if your client refuses to use collections? Well, we got to go old school. And we do have some clients who refuse. I still set it up for myself. I still show it to them when they're in front of me. I use my app when they're in front of me and we use it there. But sometimes it's just, I have to send it to them one-to-one, and it's usually my older population. And, you know, I email it, but I find that text is the most important. And if it's somebody who I know, if it's a great house and I think it's going to really, really work for them, I call them. And they really appreciate that. All right. Thank you all so much. I'm excited to be here. This made my day. I didn't know at 9 o'clock this morning that I was going to be hosting this, but you guys made it amazing. Thank you for being interactive. I am in Raleigh again, and I'm going to put my email address in here. If you need me, have any questions, want any of my info, I am a full-on collaborator. I will help you with any aspect of it. And if you want to sit in on one of our trainings when we do this, we're happy to include you. So my email's in the chat. Thank y'all so much. Thanks, Chirag, for letting me host.